One of the powerful things about CSS is the fact that we can create layouts. And that's what we're going to talk about this week. So I'm gonna create a layout here, and this layout is also on page 205 of your book. So as I create this layout, I'm gonna start explaining a couple of things. So first of all, to create a layout, we need to set certain parameters for this. So for example, we have to create, we have to set the width of the body. That's the standard. So for example, in this case, I'm going to create a width for the body element of 972 pixels width. Now, as we saw last week, we can also set, borders, margins, and also background colors. So in this case, I'm going to set the background color of this one to white, so we can distinguish it. But also, I'm going to set a margin for this. So I'm going to set a margin of 15 pixels top down. But also remember that we can, in theory, center any element. In this case, I'm going to center the body element, and I'm going to use auto. So in this case, again, remember, the auto is to center the element on the right and the left. So with that being said, the last thing that I want to do is I want to create a border around it. And the border is going to be 1 pixel, solid, and it's going to be black. Perfect. So now you can see my body element, right? And I'm going to start setting, setting more things here. So I'm going to set, just for fun, I have a padding here of 1 pixel, which is okay for the H2, but also I'm gonna set, I don't know why this header is here. I'm just gonna move it here real quick. So after the body element, I'm gonna set the parameters on my header element. And in this case, my header element is gonna be just across the board. So the only thing that I'm gonna do is have the header element, I'm gonna create a border. And this, in this case, is gonna be a border and bottom. Just for this is more for the demonstration purposes. So it's going to be a border and bottom of 2 pixels. And then it's going to be a solid color, a solid line. And the color is going to be EF9C00. So that's kind of like an orange color. So that's my border bottom. Now, how do we actually create layouts? It's a combination of basically 2 things. We float elements and we clear elements. So what does it mean to first sort of float elements? Basically, we move elements. In this point, we have seen just elements being block elements, right? They just use 100% of its parent element. In this case, if you see header here, is using 100% of the space that we provide, or the 100% the space that it has from the body. So in this case, what I'm gonna do is I'm going to float main to the left, so the aside element, which is a new element that we're introducing this week, is gonna naturally move to the right. Okay. So how do we do this? We do it in this way. We take, first of all, we're gonna set a height for this element. So it's gonna be 300 pixels. So just, sets how big it's gonna be. Excuse me. Then we're gonna set a width. Okay, so to floating elements also we need to set the width. So the width is gonna be 600 pixels. And now we are going to say basically allowed elements to be moved to basically move main to the left. So we do that with floating. We use float left. Now look at that. At this point, everything is going according to plan. If I move this and I go to main content here and I inspect this element, you will see that I have my header element there. I have a main that basically is 300 pixels width and 300 pixels tall. Because I'm not using the 100% of those 962 pixels, there is still space for a side to move in. Even though I haven't assigned any width or height to the side element, naturally, because it comes after main, is going to naturally occupy the remaining space that main is leaving because it's 350. Now also notice because of this, footer is also moving in, but we're gonna fix that in a little bit. But right now, just keep in mind, main is 300 pixels tall, has a width of 350, and also is floated to the left, so it's gonna allow any element that comes after it move to the right. Okay, we're gonna keep going. So now I'm just gonna close this, go back to main here, and I'm just gonna add a border right of 2 pixels. It's gonna be solid. And I'm gonna use the same color that I have here. So basically I'm just gonna take this, paste it. And now you see that I have a line. Perfect, right? So it's working in the way it should be working until this point. So we're just gonna keep it like that. Let's work with the side now a little bit. Now, the side is on the right now. So we need to basically assign certain values to make it work properly. So the only thing that we are going to assign is going to be width. That is going to be 360 pixels. So look at that. Now in move, right? Why is that? Again, look at that. It's on the right. It's in the place it should be. Now, if I put 360 here, 350, it's not going anywhere, right? Now, remember, where we assign width to the elements are not going to move automatically if there is a space. There is a space there, but because the element is not floated, basically it's not telling, we are not telling the side move or keep the flow, the side is gonna be just there. So now we have to float the element aside, and we're gonna go into the left, and now the side is on the left. Now, I want you to pay attention to this before I go and fix the footer. Our body element is 962. The width of the main element is 600. However, the border right has a 2 pixels width, or it's thick, the border on the right, this line over here, is 2 pixels thick. Every time that you are trying to float elements, you have to make the sum, or you have to, like sum the width, the border, the padding, and the margin. So just keep that in mind. You have to always take into account the box modeling. Otherwise, you will never have space. In this case, again, our body is 962, our width is 600, but it's actually 602 because of that border on the right. That's why we're assigning a 360 pixels width to the side element, okay? Let's keep going. So we have the side, and now we are going to clear the footer. Basically, when we clear elements, we don't allow them to keep occupying space that is available. In this case, the footer has to be clear both. And now the footer, basically what we are saying, don't move to the left or don't move to the right if there is a space. Stay where you are, because that's where we want you to be. We don't want you to start trying to occupy space next to the side, because naturally the elements, when you start floating elements, they're going to try to use a space. If you float an element to the left, the element that basically comes after that element is going to move to the right no matter what, because that's basically what the flow is. In this case, you have the main element being flown to the left, right? You have the main element being flown to the left. You have the side element being also floating to the left. And now you have to tell the footer just to stay there. And just to make a little bit of, basically make these look a little bit better, we're going to do a border top of 2 pixels. And actually, I'm going to just take this rule here, copy it, and paste it here. And now you can see that what I ended up with, it was a static layout. This is called a 2 column fixed with columns. Why? It's fixed because if I take the browser window and start making it smaller and smaller, it's not gonna adapt to the width of the screen, but it's gonna adapt when the window is bigger. But when it gets smaller, it's not going to adapt. So here you have a 2 column website page with fixed with columns.